how the manga ending perfectly parallels Van Gogh's life and foreshadows AoE. Credit to God Eater 554. After discovering a reference to one of Van Gogh's paintings, The Starry Night, in the Red Swan opening, I fell down an uncanny rabbit hole where the more I learned about his life, the more I was convinced that Aaron was based on Van Gogh. After all the parallels I found, I find it hard to believe that they can be simply passed off as mere coincidences. Number 1. Both compared themselves to a bird in a cage. Number 2. Both considered crows to be closely associated with their life. Number 3. Both pretended to have amnesia. Number 4. Both engaged in self-mutilation of their left ear/eye right before they were voluntarily admitted to a lunatic asylum. Number 5. Both covered their self-mutilated ear/eye with bandages. Number 6. Both suffered from actual psychotic episodes and delusions. Number 7. Both committed suicide. Number 8. Both considered as madmen and failures during their lifetime. Quote, "Ah, dear God, freedom, to be a bird like the other birds. A human idler of this variety is just like a bird that idles in the same way." Van Gogh. Reference to the Starry Night in the Red Swan opening is also very apparent. Fallen angel is analogous to Aaron. In Genesis, fallen angels are referred to as giants. The Greek translation of giants emerged from the 3 interconnected biblical passages: human divine hybrids in Genesis 6, autochthonous people in Numbers 13, and ancient warriors trapped in the underworld in Ezekiel 32. The giants were liminal figures resulting from the union of the opposite orders, and as such retained the unclear status between the human and divine. Driven by the winds of time is analogous to fate, not driven by his free will. The Starry Night is also analogous to the manga ending. The Starry Night by Van Gogh is referenced in the very last panel of the manga. The focus of both is 11 stars and crows, and one big tree. This deliberate reference allows us to use 150 years of people analyzing the meaning behind the painting to apply that analysis to the ending of the manga. Why did Van Gogh paint exactly 11 stars? It is believed that he was directly referencing Genesis 37:9, a key verse in the biblical account of Joseph, a dreamer and an outcast among his 11 brothers. It isn't hard to see why Van Gogh might have identified with the biblical character of Joseph in Genesis. No matter what Joseph did, he could not receive the acceptance or respect of his 11 older brothers. Likewise, as an artist, Van Gogh failed to win the recognition of the art critics of his day despite his best efforts. This implies that the 11 crows in the very last panel represent Aaron's friends that opposed him. This would explain why Isayama literally kept bringing back dead people and showed their true opposition to Aaron. Isayama made sure we see literally all characters oppose Aaron, just like all art critics opposed Van Gogh. If the 11 stars symbolize Van Gogh's critics, where is Vincent van Gogh in Starry Night? Van Gogh identifies himself with the looming cypress tree in the foreground of the painting. In the very final panel, there's Aaron, tree where he was buried, and 11 crows, Aaron friends that oppose him, and the rumbling. This perfectly fits with the final volume cover. In the final volume cover, we see Aaron and his 11 friends that were even brought back from death to show us that they oppose him and the rumbling. After Aaron's death, Astoria says that he may have been right. This implies that she also was not on his side in the manga ending. If she would have agreed with the rumbling, she would have not said that he may have been right. This means that all 11 of Aaron's friends were against the rumbling in the manga. In Genesis 37:9, Joseph, in a sense, tells his brothers and detractors about his dream to let them know that he believed that one day the tables would turn. Van Gogh also might have intended Starry Night to work as a personal statement concerning his poor critical reception as an artist. Beyond just the fact that the artist truly did receive respect later on, in Van Gogh's case, posthumously, while Van Gogh died a poor and disrespected artist, he is now one of the most famous and reproduced painters today. Van Gogh dying without convincing his critics perfectly parallels Aaron. Isayama said that the manga ending is a failure, the same way Van Gogh wrote in his letters of the Starry Night as a failure. If Isayama was inspired by Van Gogh to make Aaron, the failure of the manga ending could have been intentional, so the anime ending can tell us how to avoid failing like Van Gogh did. Because Van Gogh eventually, after his death, managed to convince his critics of his dream. I think Aaron will manage to convince his friends to side with the rumbling after his death in the manga. We will see this in the anime. There's also more foreshadowing of AoE beyond just that. Critics theorize that the hidden content of the Starry Night refers to the New Testament, revealing an apocalyptic theme of the woman and pain of birth. girded with the sun and moon and crowned with stars, whose newborn child is threatened by the dragon. What would you think about me bearing a child? The answer to Historia's question is hidden content. The reason why she didn't snitch on Aaron planning the rumbling is also hidden content. Notice that the hidden content takes place at a field, a farm field. I found that Van Gogh's commonly considered last painting, Wheat Field with Crows, has both the field and the crows from the very last manga panel. From a symbolic perspective, it's worthwhile to review the basic elements of the painting and then explore how each different interpretation could apply to Aaron. The paths. It is not a difficult leap to symbolically equate the separate paths in Wheat Field with Crows with the three timelines, Chapter 138, Manga Timeline, and Anime Timeline. The paths are basically comprised of three sets, two in each foreground corner and a third in the middle winding toward the horizon. The left and right foreground paths defy logic in that they seem to originate from nowhere and lead to nowhere. The third middle path has remained the most fertile for symbolic interpretation. Does the path lead anywhere? Does it successfully traverse the wheat field and lead to hope? Or does it, in fact, terminate in another dead end?
それは進み続けた者にしかわからない。
The crows. In his epistolae, Van Gogh often refers to birds as a symbol of freedom. Attack on Titan associates crows with Aaron and the rumbling. This suggests that Aaron will achieve freedom with the rumbling. The sky. Van Gogh allegedly perceives storms as a vital and positive part of nature. I think this relates to natalism. It is commonly believed that Van Gogh described the painting as conveying sadness and extreme loneliness on the one hand, but also health and restorative force on the other. I think this semi-positive interpretation would fit post-rumbling Aaron perfectly. Hence, I think we will get a wheat field with crows ending in the anime. While I was researching for material while making the video, I remembered the New York AOT event in 2022, where Isayama said that he based the story of Attack on Titan on a painting by Kiyoshi Yamashita titled Kaiju. Kiyoshi Yamashita is also well known as the Japanese equivalent of Van Gogh. The painting Kaiju is showing monsters killing humans on a beach, and the humans are running away. We can see the very obvious resemblance with the episode Dawn of Humanity, when the rumbling reaches the port of Marley. In my opinion, the fact that it's confirmed that Isayama was already taking inspiration from paintings for his manga gives a lot more credibility to the Van Gogh theory. Even if AoE weren't to happen, I still think that Van Gogh theory is valid, and the manga ending was based on Starry Night to some degree.